Welcome to Roost News, the place for all things volunteer. I'm Louise Gallagher, team member for the Roost News. This podcast today will cover AARP's Hawaii volunteer engagement in Social Security through a volunteer roundup. We welcome Jackie Boland, Community Outreach Director, Hawaii AARP State Office, and volunteer Bill Staton. Thank you for being on the Roost News podcast today, both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we're grateful for this opportunity. Thank you.
I'm very excited about it, to hear all about it. So, Social Security and Medicare are the topics of interest, not just for our senior population, but also for those who are approaching the age to benefit from the Social Security income. But before we start with the roundup and the seminar, could you both, each of you, share a little statement about you as an employee, Jackie, and you as a volunteer, Bill? What brought each of you to AARP in your respective positions?
Well, I came to AARP almost freshly out of college. I had just done a short stint working in television news, first at CNN and then locally in Seattle, and it wasn't what I had been hoping for. So I started temping at AARP just originally just to make a few extra dollars, but we really hit it off. Like everything that AARP was doing was so interesting to me. And I had a lot of ideas that they just jumped on. And so within a very short time, they created a position for me as an organizer around healthcare reform. And it just took off from there. And I think the storytelling aspect of being involved with the news and documentary filmmaking translated so easily to AARP's work, because a lot of what we're doing is trying to tell the story of an issue or the story of an individual so that we can make positive social change. So it just really fit, and I've been here ever since.
Well, aren't we lucky to have you, Jackie? Thank you. And how about you, Bill?
Well, I retired from working for the state of Hawaii's Office of Veterans Services. I was a counselor and an advocate with them and living on Maui. And during my years taking care of vets and their families and meeting their various needs and challenges that they have all the time, many of those would have me talking with staff from Social Security and Medicare. And as a result, because I found the staff would be very helpful, as a result, I was able to learn a lot. And that just seemed like a natural fit with the things that AARP is committed to. My wife was already involved, and she convinced me to get equally involved. So here we are today.
Well,
I only had to hear his voice once. Just once I heard that voice, and I was like, we need you as a speaker.
Yeah, he does have a great voice. I agree with you, Jackie. And Bill, we got you as a team, you and your wife. That's wonderful. So, and I'm sure the audience, AARP staff and AARP volunteers enjoyed getting to know a little about each of you before we get started. But let's go ahead and transition to our topic about volunteer engagement in Social Security through volunteer roundup. And why the topic of Social Security as a volunteer engagement activity?
Phil, shall I answer this one?
Yeah, you did such a great job of putting it together.
Well, just to back up a little bit, I'll say that AARP Hawaii has been involved in Social Security education as a volunteer activity for more than 20 years, actually. Before the DIY toolkits were invented, I basically was able to get national staff to give us a copy of their Social Security presentations and Medicare presentations. And we started doing these Think of Your Future workshops using volunteer speakers and that material. And Bill is one of those volunteers. But the volunteer roundup and the concept of it was really brought together because for years, I have been wanting to work on Social Security at a grassroots level. And it's always like, there's always something more pressing, right? More immediate than Social Security. But this date, this solvency date is looming. And always volunteers want to help, but very few volunteers are comfortable speaking the way that Bill does. And so this 90th anniversary, 90 days of Social Security really gave us a chance to build out some easy entry opportunities that volunteers could do to make a difference on Social Security. But what I was worried about is that I've been talking about Social Security and working on Social Security for so long that the volunteers who in the past have said, yeah, I want to work on Social Security would be like, oh yeah, she's saying it again, but there's really nothing for us to do. And so this was the perfect time to organize a volunteer roundup to show them some simple, meaningful things they could do to help us get further down the road on the grassroots portion of Social Security. And because we knew it was coming, we were able to dovetail it with our pre-retirement workshops that Bill's involved in terms of Social Security and Medicare.
Great. Wow. So yes, Social Security, like you said, celebrating its 90th birthday this year. Great way to celebrate with our volunteers. And you mentioned the storytelling, and I think also you have some association or affiliation with Pinko and a photo booth. Did one of these stand out as the highlight or, oh, wait. I'm out of line here. I wanted to ask something before I get there, so I apologize. But, after you decide on this topic for your volunteers, Jackie, share the steps you took to make this a reality. And if I were one of the attendees, what would I see at the roundup and what things would I hear?
Okay, well, Bill, feel free to chime in on this, but
Okay.
the process for the volunteer roundup was basically me saying to my colleagues, I want to bring volunteers together around Social Security because we have all these tools that we can use. And I think the whole staff should be involved in this because I am not the advocacy person, and much of the work on Social Security is advocacy and communications. So I knew from our past volunteer work that I really wanted it to be hands-on and engaging because that's when it's worthwhile to get together in person, and we can do so much via Zoom that when we spend the money to bring people over from the neighbor islands, we want it to be something that people will remember. So we just sat and talked about, well, what would help with the communications goals? What would help with the engagement goals? What would help with the advocacy goals? And from that, we actually split up the agenda, and each one of our staff members took a different station, if you will. So the setup for the event was people came in, we had some snacks as we always do, and we basically had them sit down, and our state director did a policy briefing that was only about 20 minutes long on what's going on with Social Security right now. And then we moved them into stations. And so one station was to talk about how do you make your elevators pitch about Social Security? What can you say in 30 seconds or less? And how can you tell your story about why Social Security matters to you? And we wanted to introduce people to the new tool that AARP has where people can actually record their own story about Social Security and submit it to the national office. So that was one station. So first people practiced their story, then they got a chance to practice recording it. And then hopefully, Bill, they went home and recorded their story and submitted it. I haven't been monitoring. Then we had another station, which was my station, and that was about these 3 easy entry opportunities for people to engage people at outreach events. So one was creating a listening post. Another was using the Plinko. And what was the third? Listening post, Plinko, and sweepstakes, how we use sweepstakes to ask people questions. And what was really cool about it is we had these free ice cream events coming up on Oahu planned already, but not mapped out how we would do it. So I was able to use these real life, okay, we're going to do some free ice cream events with Baskin Robbins. What should our listening posts look like? What information should we have on at hand? And the volunteers, when they came in their small group, helped brainstorm it and actually very much influenced how we ended up doing it. Then another station was the photo booth, the simple booth. And we really needed photos of our volunteers with Social Security because National had told us you can't use the same photos to promote the events. You have to have a different photo for every anniversary event. So we used the simple booth to get those photos. And then we also taught the volunteers how to use the simple booth if they'd never learned it before. And then the final station was the social media station, we wanted some video clips that we could use on Facebook, and we have a really hard time getting volunteers to do social media in Hawaii. But everybody that came knew ahead of time we would be asking them to do photos and social media. So we did a big group thing where we held up signs, or did we earned it, and we had laid out the choreography beforehand as a staff team, so we knew what we wanted people to do, and that was the final station. So we did that in a half a day, and we flew in just 2 people from every neighbor island, and the rest were from Oahu.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, I think it really speaks to our local office here, but Jackie as well, that the things that we have to say, our comments, our input, are taken quite seriously. And it speaks highly that we have to travel so far to get to meet together. We don't get in a car to get there, and we definitely don't get in an outrigger canoe to get there. We have to fly to get there. And as a result, it takes time and takes money, and we're grateful for everything that we are given to be able to make that happen. This event brought people, as Jackie was saying, from all of our counties, which represent different islands. And I found it really exciting to be working with people that had similar kind of a goal orientation to why am I part of AARP? They want to help communities, but specifically they want to help our seniors. And it was fun. So I'm grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, I like, oh, go ahead, Jackie. Yeah.
I was gonna say, Bill, since you've been talking about Social Security for pre-retirees for so long, did you find that being at the roundup maybe gave you a little bit more push on the advocacy messaging around Social Security than you would normally have incorporated?
Good question. I mean, definitely, because some of the things that Kaylee, our state director, had shared, some of the statistics, were things that I wasn't aware of. And I have been able to bring that to people's attention when we see why are we seeing these changes in Social Security now? Why wasn't something done sooner?
Hmm. Great. Wow. Yeah, I like the idea of the engagement with the brainstorming. I mean, I heard it just as you were talking, a couple of those, and like you say, Bill, I think that involvement and the engagement is wonderful in that process. And I certainly agree with you about AARP being that kind of advocacy program for those of us who volunteer. So, yes, Social Security is celebrating its 90th year. And you have done an amazing job to celebrate with your volunteers. And you mentioned the storytelling and Pinko and the photo booth. So, did any one of these stand out as the highlight, or were they all enjoyed by the volunteers? Can you speak just briefly to that? Either one of you.
No?
I think people enjoyed all of it. The fact that we got to work with the staff in kind of a different way was also very enjoyable because that working together is critical for how we're able to get information out to the community.
Mhm.
We had I think we had only about 40 people at this event. So that was great because we had groups of 10 mostly rotating through. And what was funny was we were thinking they were going to have a working lunch, but they were enjoying talking to each other so much that we actually carved out time for people to sit down and chit chat. I think in terms of enjoyment, I think I sensed that people enjoyed the whole thing, but in terms of usefulness from a community outreach perspective, um, I've noticed in the last decade or so that people are so much less willing to participate in training right now. Like they want to show up at an event and be told a few minutes beforehand, here's how you work it. And that doesn't really give me a chance sometimes to just dive into it with them. So what I enjoyed was being able to make sure that every one of the volunteers that went through knew the mechanics of some of the tools we use regularly. And then the brainstorming, one of the volunteers came up with this idea. Well, he said, well, when you do the free ice cream events, we should have a line for all the people that want to just get 80% of a scoop. And we should say, if you want 80% of a scoop, stand here. Because in 9 years, people will only get 80% of their Social Security. And we using that as a talking point at the free ice cream events. We didn't create a line, but we did create a board that said, would you be satisfied with 80% of the scoop? And that gave us a chance to really focus on the solvency option, even though we had a bigger sign celebrating the 90th anniversary, but that gave us the talking point to pass out the appropriate brochure and have people actually be interested in reading it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the more you make something personal, the more likely they are to have it sink in. And ice cream's very personal.
Oh, and it's good.
To begin with, so yeah. But the Maui
yeah, I like that.
Yeah, team, they're making ice cream sundaes, so they're going to get a lot more ice cream than the people on the Oahu path.
Well, and what, in the moment, what a great metaphor for everybody to relate to at that moment in time. 80% of a scoop instead of 100%. Well, that's what Social Security is going to be. So I love that. That's great. How about the feedback from the participants? What did you receive? And if you did something of magnitude again like this, is there anything you think you might deliver differently or perhaps enhance based on this experience?
I actually thought it went perfectly well. The only thing that I would change, just based on the participants themselves, is we would not assume a working lunch. We would actually just have the event be 30 minutes longer, and we would give people time to socialize over lunch because they really enjoyed it. But I think for me, evaluations are one thing. In Hawaii, people are super nice, and they almost always tell us we did a great job. What I see as the proof that things work is when people actually raise their hand to get involved enthusiastically. And that's what we're seeing, is that everybody who attended that event, they feel comfortable. And because they feel comfortable, they're not hesitating to jump in and help. And that's what I really appreciate about the event.
Yeah. And you can also see, no, we're not crazy about having our pictures taken and things of that nature, but everybody went outside and everybody stood out in the sun and got our pictures taken with smiles on our faces. So we were happy to work together.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's great feedback. It sounds like you're very happy with how it all went, so that's great. And moving on, so after the volunteer engagement Social Security program, volunteer, Bill, you held a community workshop for pre-retirees a few weeks later. What a great idea. You want to share why you thought that was important to provide the free seminar on Social Security and the Medicare scoop and how that went?
Okay, well, thank you, Louise. First off, we want to celebrate this 90 years that America's most successful initiative has experienced in a special way. We don't want it to go overlooked. 90 years has been a major impact on many people's lives. And so one of the things that we were going to do is do this ice cream social to get the scoop on Social Security. So I think Oahu's done theirs. Maui hasn't done ours yet. Ours is coming up on the 9th next month. We're not in August yet. And at it, it's going to give people an opportunity to have their questions answered. And we're going to actually have Congresswoman Jill Tokuda join us for that Q&A session. But leading up to this, we did do a couple of seminars back to back on Social Security and Medicare. And I think that they were exceptionally well received. They're educational. It allows people plenty of time to be able to ask questions. But I think it's important that people get to understand that Social Security is a critical safety net for our retirees, our survivors, disabled. And unfortunately, these programs aren't all cookie cutter so that everybody gets the same thing, but they've earned equally. So we have to try to explain that to them. And it can be a little challenging because the qualifications and benefits differ program to program.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Jack.
Just to chime in, so one of our target audiences at AARP is that 50 to 66-year-old group, and they're very hard to reach, even though, for example, Maui's got their ice cream social for Social Security's anniversary scheduled on a Saturday. They might see a lot more retirees than pre-retirees at that event. And so both Honolulu and Maui had, we call it When You Win Grad, which is our Social Security and Medicare workshop based on, our local pigeon. But when you went grad is like, whenever you went whenever you graduated, if you graduated in these years, you need to be thinking about this and this, right? So we had these events, and the Honolulu one had almost 100 people at it. We actually turned people away, all in that 50 to 66-year-old target. And what was interesting is we had just 10 days later, our free ice cream events at Baskin Robbins. And I saw lots of those people at that event. And it was great because some of them came with more Social Security questions, but a lot of them are like, after that event, I realized I need to get more involved with AARP. And so I'll be curious to see if Bill actually sees a lot of his Social Security Medicare workshop participants at the Maui Ice Cream Social, because I was thrilled. I think more than half of the people who came for free ice cream had attended that other event at Hawaii Credit Union that we did. So
that's super.
And just to, I think, piggyback on that, the positive experience that our communities experience in these community engagement events and the association with AARP is, I think, so positive. I mean, I've certainly experienced it in our community, both at a local level as well as a state level here. And I do love that about AARP. So, anything else you'd like to share that you want the attendees to leave knowing from our little interview today?
Okay. So one of the things that I think is important for people to realize is that we've got people in our communities today that some of them, probably 50% of the people receiving Social Security, are getting more than 50% of their income coming from Social Security. So their financial needs are really depending on whether or not Social Security comes through. And of them, 25% have all of their income coming from Social Security. So you can imagine the impact if all of a sudden something like a drastic change in how much they're going to get is going to drastically change how much they're going to eat. So we want to make sure that people understand how to get it and how to pursue making sure that our legislators do more than they are doing. It's important that as much as we get information out to people, because AARP cares about people, we got the AARP.org. That's a way for people to get information, questions answered. There's podcasts there. It's a wonderful tool, but our personal contact makes a huge difference to the people we meet. And we want them to understand that their personal contact with our legislators is going to make a big difference on how they react to the concerns that they hear about. They can actually relate to the people that are talking to them. We think that that's going to be that's the catalyst for whether or not anything's going to happen with the Social Security problem. And it seems that at some point, in order for us to see that Social Security is going to be strong and secure for the future, we need to have legislators do more than just give us verbal assurance. It's time that they put some feet to their promises. And I think that in order to do that, people got to speak up, because this isn't just for our generation. This is for generations to come.
Yep, I don't disagree with that. Do you feel good about what you've accomplished? And as I asked about the roundup, anything we would do differently next time, or would you just enhance what you've already covered here today?
Well, I think one thing I'd like to do is possibly take a little less time in presentation and allow for more time for questions to be answered. That makes the event even more personal to the people that are there. And I found that the question and answer period really surfaces a lot of the things that are important for them to know in the first place. So I can back off on how much is presented and just make sure they get answers.
That's with the pre-retiree workshop though, yeah?
Yes. And to some degree, that's going to be important going forward for the people that are already receiving Social Security, because some of them may have retired early, and that's going to have an impact on how much they're going to get as well as how much they can earn. And then there's the Medicare issue. And how is that addressed? Many people get confused about Part A does this and Part B does that. And how much do it's not a simple, like I said before, it's not cookie cutter.
Right. Well, go ahead, Jackie.
I don't, as I said, I don't think I would change the roundup, but I just think, it's important for everybody to maybe realize that even though AARP members are adults with long career histories and super capable, they're getting a lot of information just coming at them all the time. And we can send out a briefing sheet about what we're doing about Social Security, and maybe everybody reads it, but maybe they just read the top 3 lines. We don't know. When you give people an opportunity to come and play with things and socialize around them, it makes a big difference. And we're not in I have seen the evolution of people over the last 30 years at AARP, and we're not in the old situation where people would sit through a full day of lectures. So to give people a chance to do hands-on, even with things, that we think are simple. We think the photo booth is simple. We think the 30-second elevator pitch is simple. But I don't think the volunteers who attended, even the ones who have been around for a decade, found all of those stations to be simple. Right, Bill?
No, we didn't.
Okay, this is me actually having to internalize it and do it myself instead of just reading about someone else doing it. So I think what I would just say to volunteer leaders or staff leaders is, don't assume that just because a volunteer's been around a while, that they don't need hands-on practice with something that seems simple to you. And know that if you give people a choice to come, they might say no because they think they already know it. But if you market it in a way that explains what the purpose of it is, why you want them there, and what you're asking them to commit to ahead of time, and then just sort of be at peace with who agrees to come and play. You know what I mean? Like we entered it thinking, what, if only 10 people want to come, fine. But we got 40 something, 40, and so we were happy with that. And we have 200 volunteers. Mm-hmm. We didn't go out and beat the bushes for more. We went with people who said, yeah, me, I'm willing to have my photo taken. I'm willing to do this stuff. And it was the right people. Now, interestingly enough, a lot of the people that came and helped with the free ice cream events weren't at that event, but it's a trickle down, right? And you get that confidence within 40, 44 people, and then they mentor someone else. So I just think the opportunity to be social with each other and hands-on practice the tools is valid. And I would do it not just around Social Security, but anything if I had the resources and people willing to commit the time. I think Social Security is, it's a big wave coming now. It's starting to peak within AARP. People are starting to want to grab onto it. And so this is where we need to be giving people opportunities to see that even these little steps can make a difference. You don't have to be able to give an hour-long lecture. You can tell your 30-second story and it will make a difference. So I wouldn't change the roundup. If I could get people to do it more, if I could get another 40, I would do it again with a different group of people.
Well, I like the part about the fun and engagement because it seems like you were trying to get something accomplished. You had a job to do, but it sounds like it was so engaging for the participants. And, they seem like they got very excited about doing it too. So
We did.
It went by fast, it was what, 3.5 hours? It went by so fast. It was
I've been at those things too. And when everybody's really engaged in the process and excited, the energy in the room is so exciting and it's very infectious. So sounds like you did a great job. What was the one question that was recurring that everybody seemed to want to know the answer to?
Well, there's a lot of confusion around when to apply for Medicare. It's 65. It's just been 65 and it stays 65. But when you change the age for retiring for Social Security, it confuses people about, well, isn't that when I apply for Medicare? It's drastically painful if they don't apply for Medicare when they're 65, if they're eligible. So that's something I have to go over every time. But I think one of the things that keeps coming up for a question is, can I work and collect Social Security? And as a result, I need to explain to them how that plays out. That if they wait till their full retirement age, they can work as much as they want. There's no impact on their Social Security. Possibly if they start making more money in what they're working at, it might give them more money for Social Security, but otherwise, go for it. But if they retire early, sooner than their full retirement age, that has within it a built-in reduction in the amount of Social Security you get. And if you keep working, it also reduces the amount that you can make and take it all home without having some sort of a fee you're going to pay back. It's the complicated things that Social Security works out very smoothly, but people need to have a general idea of how that works. And that's what I try to go over.
And I had similar, but also if we're talking about the pre-retiree workshop, people that came to the ice cream social, in addition to asking me more questions about Social Security and work, they really wanted to know about the ability to collect on your spouse's record, particularly if you were divorced. And one woman, I feel so happy. She had been divorced for a long time and she hadn't collected anything on her husband's record and she was very low income. And I said, you know what? Contact Social Security because you could be getting more money. And that makes you feel great when you help someone. But in terms of the roundup, I think because of the way we did it with people in small groups, we didn't get a lot of reoccurring questions because it was all conversational. So the volunteers, it appeared to me that nobody left with unanswered questions, but they weren't just, I didn't get the same questions from everybody. It was more situational.
Right.
Well, I tell you, it sounds very impressive. You've done a great job. So, and we want to thank you, Jackie and Bill, for providing Hawaii State Office story on addressing the 90th Social Security birthday the way you've done, and for keeping volunteers and others informed on what to expect from Social Security and Medicare. And you're right, Bill. There is so many unanswered questions that many people have, and you hear stories, but you really don't know what's true and what's not true. But before we close today, is there anything that either of you would like to say or share before we end our interview today?
I just want to put out there that people commonly refer to Social Security as a benefit, and it is a benefit. But we typically think of benefits as something above and beyond something we deserve. Social Security is something that people worked hard to get. They've bought and paid for it, and it is an entitlement. It's not a benefit. And anything that's going on to change what they were told should be considered the wrong way to go. They need to keep it strong.
We earned it. We earned it. It needs to be there for us. So I think that's enough. But also just if anybody does want to work on sort of this model, the volunteer roundup model with their volunteers, I'm more than happy to share our agenda with people. They can reach me at jboland@aarp.org.
Oh, thank you very much, Jackie. That's
And that's
great.
how they can reach me, by getting to Jackie.
That's right. Get in touch with Jackie. She knows me.
Text with Bill because he never checks his email.
So true.
So, well, staff and volunteers, we encourage you to subscribe to our Roost News podcast channel on YouTube or listen to the audio version on your favorite platform. And of course, please invite your colleagues to join us too. If you have a story to share, let us know. On behalf of our Roost News podcast team, we thank you for your time today. Thanks.
Thank you, Louise. Very helpful. Thank you, ma'am.